If you're here watching this video, you're either here because you have no idea what a tibial plateau fracture is and your curiosity got the best of you, or unfortunately, you do know what one is and you probably just got invited into a club that you didn't want to be a part of. You may ask yourself, why in the world would I be starting a video in a place as dismal as this behind a shed in my backyard? But this is where my story began, and that's why I wanted to start here. On March 25th of 2020, there used to be a small shed right over here. This shed was up the hill. I was here needing to move that shed, which my father and I had built back when I was a kid. It was in bad disrepair. I was going to tear it down. The plan was to move that shed and move this shed where it used to be. Problem was, this big oak tree was sitting here in between the two sheds. I had gotten out here and I had taken all the top out of the tree, all the branches were gone, everything was done but the trunk. The trunk had a rope tied to the top of it, the rope went out in the yard, and my plan was to set my notch, make my back cut, and pull it over to get it out of the way and to drop it between the two sheds. Now I've cut a lot of trees. I'm not a pro, but I've cut a lot of trees. So I was fully confident in doing that job. The problem was, I had the boat hooked up. I was wanting to go fishing the next day. This was going to be the last cut of the day, and all my mind was on the next thing that I wanted to do. So 100%, this injury was my fault. When I made my notch and I made my back cut, I looked up at the tree and the line was still taut. I was ready to go pull. I had a way to come around on either side that I could have walked out of the danger path, but both sides had vines and briars and stuff like that. I mean, this is Alabama, there's briars everywhere. But instead of fighting through the vines, fighting through the briars, I walked into the danger zone. I looked at the tree, it was not moving. I made 2 steps. At the second step, I caught movement out of the corner of my eye and I looked up in time to see the tree coming. I dodged as fast as I could. It wasn't fast enough. When the tree hit, it bounced up and nailed me in the side of the leg. I heard the pop. I didn't know what pop. And then when it came down, it landed on my leg right here, and I was leg one way, body the other way, pinned underneath the tree. My bride Angie was sitting up in the yard, and I hollered, I said, "Angie," she said, "You're hurt, ain't you?" And I said, "I'm hurt, but I'm okay." I said, "But you got to go get the pry bar out of the shed." So my poor little old 4 foot 9.5 inch bride that's about 103 pounds soaking wet had to go grab a steel bar and come over, put it underneath that tree, and the 2 of us were able to pry the tree off of my leg. I didn't know yet what injury I had. When this happened, guys, the COVID mess had just lit a fire. We didn't know what to do. I mean, I barely made it out of the yard. We had a rolling walker that was left here from my mom that Angie came up, got it, and I used it to get out of the yard. And I mean, you know, I was lightheaded because, I mean, the pain was so bad. We came in, sat down in the chair, and I knew I needed to go to see emergency, but I didn't want to go because if I went to emergency with all the COVID stuff going on, I knew my company would quarantine me for 10 days, you know. And because it was brand new, nobody knew what was going on with that virus. So that night, Angie put out a prayer request for me on Facebook for an injury, and we didn't know what to expect. You know, we didn't know what it was. We were still trying to figure out what to do. And a friend of hers that worked over at Houston in Columbus, she texted her and said, "Look, that sounds like something my doctor needs to see, and we'll try our best to get you in tomorrow." So the next morning we had an appointment. I mean, it was one of them, you know, answer prayer type things, and we went in straight into him, and he did an x-ray, and he came in and he shot perfectly straight. There was no sugar coating, no nothing. He said, "Mr. Funk," he said, "this is the second worst injury that you could have done to your leg." He said, "And I'm telling you right now, it's not going to be pleasant." He said, "And you're going to have surgery." And I was like, man, look, I had 1 surgery in all of my 40 some odd years, you know, and it was on my nose. It was like, I've never broken a bone, none of that stuff. He's like, "Well, you're going to have surgery on this one, and I'll see you tomorrow at 7. So You know, but it was at the time where Angie couldn't come with me, so I was totally alone. Everything, I was the only person on the whole floor when they whittled on me. It was definitely a ghost town in that hospital, and strange. But I was thankful that the doctor didn't pull any punches. He let me know that this was going to be a heck of a recovery. So I came home, and within 4 days I was in PT, and even my PT guy, who was awesome, was not going to take no for an answer. He was going to push me to do more, farther, faster. He wanted to see me going. And the doctor told me, he said, look, he said, one of the benefits is that you are already running. And I had started running. I really enjoyed it. And I know I'm not built like a runner. I know I don't look like a runner, but I had started running and was running 5Ks. And 5 days before the injury, I actually signed up for a virtual race because all of the in-person races had been canceled. Well, he said that'll benefit you. He said you may not get back to running. He said because this injury is going to cause probably arthritis, probably a premature knee replacement. He said, and you may not get back to running. Some people do, some people don't. It's just going to really depend on you. Well, in listening to the doctor and listening to the PT, in my mind, I tried my best. I'm like, look, I don't want to give up. A lady at the over at Houston said, you need to find a group. It's called Tibial Plateau Fracture Recovery Surgical and Non-Surgical, and it's on Facebook. And that page was just a wealth of information, and it was great for my recovery. It was also eye-opening because I saw everything from folks that were pushing through with wonderful support to people that had absolutely zero support and were doing everything on their own, and then people that have just given up. And man, I didn't want to be that person. I didn't want to be the one that gave up. And thankfully, I have a great support group. I've got a wonderful wife. I've got great friends. I had, immediately folks were asking how they could help. I've got a wonderful workplace that understood, and that means a lot. And I mean, and also for me, I mean, my faith is a tremendous support to me because my hope is not here. It comes from somewhere else. And I don't beat people up over the head. If you ever want to hear about it, feel free to message me. But I live the way I live, and that's the way I'm going to go, and I'm not ashamed of him. But we decided that we were going to push as hard as I possibly could, much to the chagrin of my bride, who oftentimes said, you are pushing limits that you don't need to be pushing. Now, I would tiptoe all the way to the limit, and I would lean as far as I could over it and push as hard as I could without creating issues for myself. I wanted to stay active. I did not want to quit. I didn't want to stop. I wanted to keep going. So I actually tied my wagon to myself and used a strap to pull the wagon behind me. So anytime I had a project like hoeing in the garden or planting stuff, I would wheel myself out there, plop myself down on the ground, dig my holes, do whatever I need to do, plant my plants, get up and come back out. Or I'd carry timber out to the shop. I learned how to run a scroll saw. I set up a little bench out there in front of a scroll saw and started cutting and making these little bowls, and I just had stuff that was busy work that kept me going. As I got stronger, I actually finished building the picnic table that I started the day that I got hurt, and I finished that job. And I waited till my wife went to a meeting at church and sat down on a bucket, and I finished cutting up that log with a chainsaw because I wasn't going to let it whip me. And then I took pieces from that log and I built a few little artsy things out of it just to have for mementos, because I wanted to prove to me, that I had it in me. And guys, that's one of the things that's been the hardest part about this, is that I caused it. I mean, I'm the dummy that caused the injury. So I don't have like other people who have had a dog run into them, or somebody else run into them, or a freak accident. Yes, this was a freak accident that I caused. It was my own fault. So I fought with that mentally for a long while, and it took me a little bit to get over it. And then I realized, well, if you'd have took one more step, that tree would have caught me in the head, caught me on the neck, something, and most likely you wouldn't be here to share your story. So for some reason or another, you better share it. And guys, from the time of recovery, it was 10 weeks that I missed work, and they let me come back to light duty. I was 15 weeks non-weight bearing on crutches. I went 18 weeks until I was fully weight bearing. Now, the crutches were something that took me a lot to get used to, because I mean, I was developing calluses. I mean, they hurt. You know, it takes a while to develop. All I can say is, if you're on the crutches, keep pushing. Keep pushing and learn how to use them. Learn how to, don't fight against them. I actually got to where I could shorten mine and go up steps and down steps, which totally drove my wife crazy, because she's like, there's an elevator right there. And I said, one day I'll have to use the elevator. Right now I don't. So my whole reason for making this video is to tell you that this is a life-changing injury, but not a life-ending injury. Let me say that again. This is a life-changing injury, but not a life-ending injury. When they turned me loose to go full weight bearing, you know, I started, which I actually finished that 47-mile Thor race. I finished it in wheelchair. I finished it on a recumbent bike. I finished it every way that I possibly could. The last mile was on crutches, and I was thankful for it. And then we've kept going from there. That first year, I ended up with 1,675 miles walked, and it was a little over 3.7 million steps. And I want to run. Every time I try to run, the pain in my knee is still, after 2 years, is still bad enough that I question, am I doing more damage to it? So I stop. And you know, I don't want to create more issues going forward. If I can hike and walk, I'm going to keep doing that, and that's what I'm doing now. I've got plans to do a half marathon this year, and then the Pine Mountain Trail, which is about 24 miles. We're planning on doing that, and I'll keep walking, and I'll keep going and keep going and keep going. If it means that I can't run, then you know that's it for me. I know other people that do run with their injuries, so you know, don't let my limitations be your limitations. Don't get into that group and let somebody else that's quit, don't let their limitations be your limitations. You looking in that mirror are your limitation, okay? Don't give up. Man, don't stop. Just keep pushing. You can get through this. It is life-changing, not life-ending. You can make it through this. It's going to take as much help as you can get. It's going to take as much strength as you can muster. It's going to take patience. You know, it was not a fun ride. I mean, I changed my life basically till the day I stepped into that grave. I changed it, and I can either sit and rot or I can move and bloom and flourish, and that's the man I want to be. I don't want to be the one that sits there and rots. So if I can help you guys answer any questions about your TPFs or one of your loved ones, if they're fighting this, please don't hesitate. You know, hit me up. I'll do the best I can. But I just wanted to share that with you guys because of my path and where I'm at now, and doing well and continuing walking. I'd love to run. Man, I'd love to run, but I'm going to keep walking. So y'all do the same. Take it easy.